So there we go.
Very good. Well, welcome to the April 23rd, 2024 session of TangerineSDR and Clementine and Hamsci technical session. So my name is Dave, KB0S, and this week I've been preparing some KA9Q demos. I'm doing them VHF because trying to run an HF antenna setup is kind of nasty at Hamvention. So I'm going to do VHF, and we're going to listen to all the people trying out their new radios and things. We also listen to NWS weather, and we can listen to WWV. Well, no, we can't without VHF or HF, but we'll have a B link. I'll have two B links, and I'm going to use Air Spies, and they'll demonstrate the system working and with little speakers so you can hear what's going on. So I think it should be interesting for people walking by. So that's what I've been working on. Next on the list, we have Nathaniel, W2NAF. Go ahead.
Thanks a lot, Dave. I have been continuing to just try to keep everything going with research and classes and things like that. I've been working on doing some revisions to a GRL paper that we got reviews back on, and trying to keep things going with the grants and everything else. So W2NAF back to net.
Okay. Next on the list, we have Dave, KD0EAG. Go ahead, Dave.
Not a lot to report here. I've been doing a little schematic work, a bit of other things, but nothing really exciting. That's it for me.
Okay. Next on the list, we have Jim, K4BSE. Go ahead, Jim.
Good evening, all. I've been spending time trying to keep all four of my grape experiments running. The grape 2 has dropped off a couple of times for reasons I can't explain. I wonder if it has to do with that hard drive thing that I think somebody had mentioned. I can usually get it back either by rebooting or by jiggling some cables, then rebooting. I'm still having intermittently the problem where if I have the keyboard and mouse plugged in to the USB cable on the Hamsci, on the Grape 2 experiment, my Grape 1 original kind of goes crazy when I select with a KVM switch when I select the Grape 2. And I found I can dispense with that problem if I just unplug the mouse and a keyboard USB connector from the Grape 2. I still don't understand why. I'm running it like that right now, and trying to figure out what's going on. Anyway, I'm continuing and hopefully getting close to finished on this Hamsci paper I'm going to be giving next month for our club down here. If I get it in time, Nathaniel, I would appreciate if you just glance over it and make sure I didn't do anything stupid. I will send it to you once I get it in a little bit better shape. I don't think I have, but I've tried to use your stuff, which I appreciate very much, using that a good bit. So that I'm going to stay out of trouble on. Anyway, that's about it. Back to net K4BSE.
Okay. Next on the list is Michael, AAAK. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, thank you. Greetings to everyone listening. Back to you, Dave.
Okay. Next on the list is Bill, AB4EJ. Go ahead, Bill.
Fine business, Dave. Thanks. Not a whole lot to report. Working on getting the data ready for Madrigal. I finally got a chance to talk to Bill Rideout at length this morning, so we have some good discussions to get with Phil Erickson and company tomorrow. Planning to be at Dayton, putting together a poster to present at CDR in San Diego. And that's about it. Back to Ned.
Okay. Bill, I had one thing I was looking at one of the graphs that you have, and it has a data box, and mine comes out very near black on black. And I can tell there's some words in there, but they're hard to read. So that's one of the where it plots the WWV graphs
So you're talking about a plot that comes up on the website?
on the website.
Hmm.
So the plots come out fine, but there's some box near the top that's supposed to have like who reported it, and I can barely read it, but it's just the contrast of the settings for the web page. I don't know.
Well, let me ask you this. Take a screenshot of it and email it.
Okay, I'll do that.
That'll help me get to the bottom of what's going on.
Okay. Next on the list is, let's see, Cam W7 CAM. Go ahead.
Howdy. So this week, spent some time working on scoring for the Solar Eclipse QSO party, the October portion, and working with Nathaniel's new postdoc Kuldeep on getting some graphing done. So that's been exciting. Yeah, and looking at kind of my next set of experiments for what I'm gonna get set up in the now clean attic. Got the attic cleared up and took care of the bats. So
Very good.
Exciting.
I may or may not still have bats in my belfry, but at least they're not in my attic. So you know. So that's all back to net.
Okay. Very good. Let's see. I'm trying to not repeat somebody. Next on the list is David in one HAC. Go ahead, David.
Good evening, everyone on the net. We're continuing to pull data in from our AM Doppler system and lining up, looking at the eclipse data, which looked pretty interesting. And the more immediate is I'm trying to set up for the frequency measurement test tomorrow night, but trying to find software that behaves. FLDigi and WSJTX and all that stuff each have their quirks that I'm trying to figure out. And of course, juggling between Windows and Mac doesn't help things, but we'll see what we can get. This is the first time I'm going to give a full try to the frequency measurement test. And maybe eventually we'll have some of our own hardware that can be used for that. Back to net.
Okay. Next on the list is Ed in 3 ED. Go ahead, Ed.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to report that I went to the University of Texas for the solar eclipse, since they were directly under it. And while I was there, I was able to meet for 2 days in a row with Fabiano Rodriguez, and he's doing work with the ionosphere, but basically he's going through it with GPS satellites and looking at phase shifts that are taking place there. His work was really fascinating. We did spend a significant amount of time discussing it. Also, I met with some other people there with regards to radio astronomy type activities. So that's been my work. And Gladys, of course, went with me. She's knowledgeable in the ionospheric area. So it was a valuable trip. Back to Ned.
Very good. Sounds like fun. Next on the list is Franco, K4VZ. Go ahead, Franco.
Thanks, David, and good evening, everyone. So this week I've been mostly playing with the new TFC prototype, the one with 2ADC that Phil Harman and Justin Peng from China have developed. I have it here on my desk, and I was able to do a little bit of running on the FX3, some example from Cypress, but if I try to run the same firmware of the RX888, it hangs, so I'm trying to address that, and some troubleshooting debugging of USB plus FX3 firmware. So by the time I'm done, I'm gonna be able to help you guys with the RX888 because I'm gonna know so much about USB and all those secrets. Finally, I will figure out, and that's what I've been doing so far. Back to you, David.
Well, very good. And we're happy that you're figuring this out.
Very happy.
Yes. Next on the list is Gareth, KD2SAK. Go ahead, Gareth.
Evening, everybody. Nothing too much to report from my end. Like Nathaniel, I've just been busy wrapping up the end of my teaching schedule, preparing for final exams and meetings, keeping grants going, keeping postdocs up to speed and students in line and up to speed. So that's all for me. Back to Net.
Okay. And let's see. Next on the list is Gary, AF8A. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Been sitting here this evening perusing file that Cam sent me for the SEQP scoring. It's very helpful, learning quite a bit. Also, just something I'll throw out. We don't need an answer at the moment, but maybe later. It seems that we first started using the RX888 after Dayton last year. We had a lot of thermal issues that people came across and presumably solved. And I had somebody come up to me the other day saying, hey, I'd like to buy one of those RX888s and get involved with what you guys were doing. But I didn't want this person to have to reinvent all the thermal fixes. So maybe later I'll bring it up again, but just something to keep in mind, a question that's in the back of my head. Back to Net, Dave.
Okay. Very good. Next on the list is Jay Schwartz, WB8 SBI. Go ahead, Jay.
Good evening, everybody. Not a lot new here, but I did have a couple questions for some of the gang there. Do we have any unofficial preliminary information about how many data points we got during we got during the eclipse? And Dave McGraw, how's the station up in my second floor? Is that still purring along, giving you data?
Doing just fine. Thank you.
Yeah. So great. So do we have any unofficial count about how many data points we got?
We do actually. I can show this after the roll call. Bill Engelke actually ran the HarkPlot code for the eclipse day. And we have, if you go to hamsci.org, the top news article right now is initial results from the solar eclipse QSO party. And it shows over 52.7 million spots. And we can see the eclipse signature very clearly in the low bands and a little bit in the high bands as well. So it's a really beautiful plot. And as I said, once we get through the roll call, I'll be happy to show it and talk about it a little bit if you like.
Okay. Do we think that there's going to be more data points rolling in?
I would say that's probably at least in terms of the solar eclipse QSO party, that includes WhisperNet, RBN, and PSK reporter. So it's got all the FT8 stuff. So, I mean, that's going to be like the vast majority of it. I mean, 52.7 million is a pretty fantastic number. I should say too that, you know, that doesn't include any of the grape data, which I consider kind of a separate data product. And it's really looking at things a little bit differently. So you use them in different ways. And then also, I know with some of the Whisper Demon reception, you know, it's worth looking at some of those more individually, especially where where they have the stations where they know they have good disciplined oscillators, and you can get the Doppler spread on those data points as well. So I think there's a lot for us to chew on.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
that was about all I had radio wise, except what was it? Not this past weekend, 2 weekends ago, 20 meters FT8, even to like 1 and 2 in the morning was wide open. I even got down to Indonesia, New Zealand on 50 watts on my more fine chunk vertical. So anyway, that'll about do it for me. Back to Net.
Yep, there's been quite a bit of solar activity that may affect your propagation. So next on the list is Jonathan, KC3EY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. I've been working on testing a program written in Pike as an alternative to awk. The program takes a median slope from data that was collected when I monitor Navy VLF transmitters. When I measure absolute phase, some of those transmitters have a small frequency offset, and that causes the phase calculation to show a linear roll. So to straighten that out, what you would do is you would actually calculate the slope, and that's the frequency offset. But the problem is that when you have when you just have data and you actually could have multiple slopes, you want to get an average. So what this Pike program does, written by the author of VLFRX Tools, is it takes the median of all the slopes of the data range, and the frequency offset that it gives is a fairly accurate frequency, and that phase roll is eliminated, and the plots actually look much better. I couldn't find the Pike programming language, or at least a package on it wasn't available in Ubuntu, or at least I couldn't find it, so I had to download it and manually compile it, but everything worked. I'm also working with Nathaniel on the VLF kit budget, getting that all squared away so that's a more accurate number. That's all I have. Back to the net.
Thanks a lot. And next on the list is Michael, AC0G. Michael, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. I don't have a lot to report. I had a nice trip out east to visit some longtime friends, and I've been busy working on trying to rearrange stuff in the shack, and also working through some of the documentation on the use of 44 net in some manner, shape, or form. That's about it. Back to net.
Very good. Next on the list is Paul, WB6 CXC. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My activity last couple days is testing successfully the little adapters for the RX 888 that make it easy to hook up external reference clock. These provide termination and attenuation and DC isolation, for DC ground loops. And Gary, about the thermal on the 888, well, Rob can talk to that, but also I will probably be including that in a 888 kit for, the external clock kit. Probably also include the heatsink material, the way Rob's been doing it. I've got a link if you want to look at the details on the little clock adapter. I just put that up on the Turn Island Systems website. So if you're curious, you can always take a look. And there's a document, and that document will include the thermal modifications as well. Once I get some samples I can take pictures of and do it myself, make sure I'm describing it right. So anyway, look there, or also Rob can certainly help you out on the details of the thermal updates. And there is some pretty good documentation that is on the Whisper Demon website, and I believe a couple other places that I could find, or I'm sure Rob could point you to as well. But the Turn Island Systems website should be kind of a one-stop shop for that particular modification and upgrade. At least it will be in a day or two when I finally finish all the documentation. And that's been it. I've been really happy. I'm waiting for some more prototypes of various things to come in, and looking forward to seeing if those work. The little clock adapter thing was, it was just so simple. It had to work unless I just did something incredibly stupid, which, has happened. But it's successful. So I'll be bringing some to Dayton. Going to be working with Tapper. They're going to either distribute or help distribute, or we'll make those things available probably several different ways. And that's been my activity last couple of days. Back to net. That's perfect, Paul. Thank you.
Yep.
You're welcome.
Very good. Look forward to it. Let's see. Next on the list is Scott, N5TNL. Go ahead, Scott. No mic. Okay. The next one on the list is Tom, N5EG. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Last week was a disaster. I have an external audio interface, USB based, and it crashed during the conference call last week. So I tore it apart, found 2 bad solder joints inside of the unit, and resoldered it, and it's working again. So I'm back, and I'll chime in. I also got the thermal pad, the big sheet from Mauser, and put that on my RX 888. I didn't do the other mods, putting on the fins with better double-sided paper tape or whatever. And this was back when we were running a 129 meg clock, and the RX 888 went from stone cold on the outside to, after doing the mod, really quite warm. And so I think that means that chewing gum, sticky material stuff really seems to work well. It really did the job well. Back to the group.
Okay. Next we have Rob Bennett, NI6NV. VN, sorry. I messed
It's
it
hard
up.
for me
Sorry.
too, Dave. It's hard for me to pronounce sometimes. So don't. Yes, I've been okay. So thanks. I've been working on a number of things. One thing just to start with, here is an example of how you can take the thermal pad that and attach it. And I use this little copper foil that I put on the bottom. And this this allows me to easily slide the whole assembly in and out of the 888's case. I use a putty knife and then slide it in, and then I can pull the putty knife out. And it actually maintains quite good, it seems to do quite a good job of thermal conduction while allowing for easy sliding of the PC board in and out. So if you want to make changes. And Paul's sent me 7 of his little adapter kits, and I sent him a bunch, 15 thermal pads. And I think between us, we could help anyone who's wanting to assemble this. And one of the great advantages of Paul's kit is that he also did a back panel for the 888. So this modification requires no drilling, no hole punching. It's one small Phillips number 1 screwdriver is about all you need to perform, and a putty knife might be helpful. Is all you need to address the thermal and the external clock needs of a 888. So I have, geez, there's 22 sites now running Whisper Demon and 888 and configured to do grape uploads. So I haven't had any failures on them so far. So I think that I believe that all of them have the thermal mounts, and I think all of those have the external clock input. So together with that, I think we have established a fairly reliable receive platform at long last. Yes, at least that's my okay. And the final stage of that was to get all 4 of the antennas at KFS out near me here. There are 4 antenna systems. Each of them now has a 888 fed from the antenna. Each of them is contributing, making WWV and CHU recordings and uploading them as each having their own station ID and instrument number. And thanks to Paul's clock mods, and his distribution amp, I've been able to now have at least after about 3 weeks, I now have a fully stable 4 receiver sites out there at KFS. So I think that's was a major effort, and in process I did upgrade Whisper Demon. Phil has made who can't, I don't think, is joining us tonight because he's hosting an ARDC conference, so he can't join us this week. But Phil has made numerous improvements to KL9Q, including one he added last night, where he actually reports the radio D, his radio D service reports the approximate clock frequency, which is an extremely important thing to know. If you okay, so it does, it's not going to be exact because it's the timing is based upon the system clock, the host CPU system clock, but it gets you in the ballpark and knows if there's some gross errors with your clock cabling or your clock settings. So, but that's only the smallest of the improvements that Bill has made to his Radio D software. So it seems quite stable. There are occasions, Franco, where the 888 disappears from the USB bus.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, and the only solution to that is to power cycle the 888. So those of you who have 888s, and if they're remote from you, will want to put a little remote control power outlet like one of these. Put it on your host computer, the one that's powering the 888, so you can remotely power cycle the host if it locks up. And Jay has done that. Dave Schwartz, who I don't think he's here. today, but he went out today and put one out at the W0DAS site by WWV. So because it had locked up on me last week. So those are a number of the, external power control, the thermal mods, and Phil's latest code together seem to have produced a pretty stable system. And I have 22 sites now contributing, including one in the Netherlands. A very high quality site in the Netherlands is now contributing great data. So I guess I should do that in, if I should do it in Maui, but I haven't hardly looked at my Maui site since it's been so impaired since I sold the property. So it's, anyway, that's some of my, most of my activities. Oh, one other thing.
Oh,
More, just one other thing. I've organized a meeting in collaboration and encouragement from Nathaniel to meet with the group called the Whisper Beacon Network. And this is a established network of 40 or more transmit sites, or Whisper transmit sites around the world that was organized by Roland, HB, a Swiss guy, HB9VQQ. And these sites have been in operation. He found hams around the world, including ones in the middle of the South Atlantic Ocean, and some really wonderful sites. He has these sites, and they are running ZACTEX right now, and hardly being heard because it's a 200 milliwatt output, and of course not so useful for radio science because they're not GPS disciplined. But they seem to be very interested in upgrading from ZACTEX. The beauty of this is everything exists. The antennas are there. Most importantly, the human who's interested in them is there to maintain them, install them, and maintain them. And they, they have experience with how to ship these things and get through customs and all that other stuff. Roland has done all that, and they've been in operation for years. So these are people who can be relied upon. These are not transiently interested people. They've proven their interest in it. So I've organized an online conference call for tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and have, I think, almost half of his stations, the half that it's not the middle of the night for them, are joining that call. I've invited you, Nathaniel, but there's no need for you to attend. I think I can communicate about the HAMSI organization and share the website and the goals of the project with them. But if you want to, of course, you're welcome. And anyone else here who is interested in this is certainly welcome to join this call. I imagine it'll be an hour or two. Mostly, though, it will tend to repeat stuff that I'm sure you guys know and better, as well or better than I do. But that's my that's my goal. If there's a level of interest, then we can further explore. I'll see what the level of interest is, and then we can get back together with Roland and Nathaniel, and you can see if we see this is a useful opportunity. So one site that I would like to allocate, and the help of the group, is I've been encouraging Dave to explore with WWV locating a Whisper sound on the WWV site. So, because I think that it would complement the frequency analysis and reporting that's done using the WWV signals. In some ways, I think we get better data about Doppler shift and such from the Whisper sound than we can get from the WWV signals. And so Dave says there's a meeting in May. There's going to be a meeting of the frequency calibration, whatever committee. And Dave has promised me that I'll be invited to that, and I'm going to promote the idea of deploying a Whisper sound there with, whatever the W0 WWV would be the a call sign or whatever. I don't. They must have a call sign for the club up there. Anyway, I'm hoping. It seems to me like it would be a great benefit to everybody, including the ham site community, to have an additional source of frequency calibrated transmissions. Just as we have for receive sites, Dave's receive site, this would complement it by having a transmit site at the WWV. Okay, that's back to net.
Okay, Nathaniel, it's back
I
to
think
you.
that, all right. I think that's great, Rob. And I'm planning on being at your Telecon tomorrow.
Great. Okay, great.
Yes,
Yeah, I didn't get an acceptance from you, and I didn't.
I actually I just hit accept right now, but it was on my calendar, so I was absolutely planning on being there. So
Okay.
the only caveat is that the generator company is supposed to come to my house tomorrow morning at I think 10 a.m. and because they're supposed to be testing, we were having some trouble with making sure that the station stays online when our power goes out. That should be done by the time your call starts.
Okay.
But
okay. Well, you can, if you have to pay attention to them, of course, you can't participate, but you can always use your cell phone.
Yes.
Okay.
I think they're coming a few hours before your telecon, so I think it should be okay.
You're East Coast, right?
Yes, I'm East Coast.
Oh, you're 3 hours ahead of me then. So it's So.
Yeah, I think it's going to be just fine. So I'm
Yeah,
planning
it'd be 1 p.m. your time. Okay.
Yeah.
So good luck.
Thank you. So I'm planning on doing that, and then that'll be great. So does that mean?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
What's the time?
10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern.
Yes. Anyone else wants an invite? Oh, well, one other thing that just came up. I had been encouraging people to do Whisper 2 transmissions, and Mike A8K has been transmitting, and I think Dave, you have been transmitting in Whisper 2 mode, and Gwen has been doing some investigations of Whisper spreading versus reports versus 4W spreading reports. And there's a lot of divergence. So I think we need to go back and we're going to return to transmitting using 4W for the Whisper sound sites because the spreading data is so much more useful. Mike, I can log on to your system and change the mode. You don't have to get involved, but because I have remote access to your Whisper sound.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay. You don't have to do anything. Dave, Dave, I don't have access to your EAG site though, I don't think, but maybe Michael does. I don't know if you have
Michael does.
Yes, I have access.
Okay, so yeah, if you could switch him to, and we should use this as an opportunity to make sure we document on our what exact frequencies we're transmitting on, and this is the Whisper Sound reports the transmit frequencies to the millihertz, and
to the microhertz.
Microhertz. Sorry, microhertz. Okay,
that's assuming your reference is close to, is at the microhertz level.
We might as well copy and paste the data that you print out. We might as well put it to full. Don't lose accuracy in data is one of my, don't throw away data, and as one of my mantras. And so we should, but we need to pick frequencies. Ideally, that hopefully the ones that we have picked already for the Whisper sounds that don't overlap each other. But there is a web page where we try to. I think Michael and I have Howard have been trying to document the actual transmit frequencies. So and this is there's some. Gwen showed some to me very startling results from Whisper sound. Surprising to me, on 80 meters, he is observing daytime spreading numbers that are essentially zero. During the daytime, 80 meters, it appears like the E layer becomes a duct for 80 meters. It's just looking at it. He showed a chart. He's going to put up a report on this that shows that you can see at nighttime. Of course, there's a Doppler shift going on, and bam is when the sun comes up. The signal levels go down because of, I guess, delay or absorption, but the Doppler shift goes away. So I don't know that anybody has documented this before, but it's going to be, it's one of the many things that Gwen is learning from the Whisper Sound transmissions. So I think there's some very interesting phenomena that I'm not sure how well known they are, but it was new to me.
Yeah, I do know that from looking at the grape data, I'm very familiar with the a dawn, a lot of activity at dawn, and you get multipath there, and then it transitions to basically a rock solid like E
Yes.
layer for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I've seen that all the way down to 80 meters, but I know I've seen it on like 5 megahertz. So
It's 80 meters. It's just startlingly. I mean, it's just it flatlines at the bottom at zero. It's amazing to see it. So anyway, it's Gwen has published. I think. By the way, he has a. I think the latest QEX has an article of some data. Probably all of you know from last year. But he's also publishing another article in the RSGB Radio Society of Great Britain journal. Has another article of his coming out, and he got an award for propagation analysis from them. And I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going. He's doing all kinds of great stuff, and unfortunately, he just can't join us because it's the middle of the night for him. So anyway,
that's wonderful. Yeah,
this is
Quinn's really doing a great job there.
By the way, if on the difference in spreading reports between FST4W and Whisper, it'd be wonderful if some grad student with major math and coding skills could take a look at the software and the modulation methods being used and figure out why there is this dramatic difference. I mean, we're seeing it on 0 path length, non-obstructed, perfect channels. And at this point, I don't think anyone knows why, what we're actually seeing. And it's a puzzle that's bothering a lot of us. Me certainly.
Yeah, it's hard when you don't trust your tools entirely.
But I don't have the personal skills to do that analysis. But I'm betting somebody on this meeting knows somebody who does.
Wow.
Anyway, that's the Whisper versus FST spreading reports are really it's a real puzzle.
That is strange. All right, so I guess it's the call mine now, Dave?
Yes, go ahead.
All right.
As long as you can control the crowd.
It's a rowdy crowd.
You should always put me at last, Dave. You should always put me last. I assume you put me last because I tend to.
It's out of affection, Rob.
I promised I would show this. So I sometimes forget what telecons I show things on, but I think we didn't show this until last Thursday's telecon. So I guess we didn't cover this with last Monday's telecon. But Bill Engelke has been working very hard on this other project to get all of the PSK reporter, RBN, and WhisperNet data into the Madrigal database, and then routinely produce these summary plots from that data. And so Bill provided this summary plot from the April 8th eclipse day. And here you can see 6 bands over the continental United States. And of course, 160 meters is on the bottom here. 10 meters is on the top. And look at this. You can see beautiful eclipse signatures on 160, 80, 40 meters. And it's just clear as day, even in this summary plot. And then, so of course, that I think is from collisional, the D region absorption going away. And then up here, you can see on 10 meters, you can see a little bit of a bite out here. And I think that's from the band shutting down due to the eclipse right there. So, and I can see maybe some enhancements over here on 14 megahertz. So this is 52.7 million spots. As I said, this is just a summary plot. These, when we did the 2017 eclipse QSO party, that one, I spent a long time before I was able to actually get the data organized in such a way that I could see the eclipse effects. So there was a lot of effort that went into producing this particular plot, organizing everything by relative eclipse time and things like that. And so just to have it show up so clearly in this summary plot without really doing any work was really a nice thing. So I think when we, Cam has started working on this and our new postdoc called DP is starting to work on this. I think as they dig into this, there's going to be a lot of really interesting information that we get from here. So with that said, I know I asked Jonathan to come on the call tonight. And so I think what I wanted to do was I wanted to hear from Jonathan regarding the VLF update of the VLF system costs. And then I wanted to maybe hear from Gary if he had any either updates or questions on finding sites. And we can kind of talk again about our whole instrument siting plan and maybe even get into some of the science cases. But Jonathan, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Let me bring up my sheets here. So I only began, I began kind of filling in everything. Since I don't have the actual, I don't have this kit actually designed yet. So what I'm designing is actually based on what I built, but it's meant to be a reproducible kit. Here, let me try to bring up the spreadsheet. And okay, let's see here. All right, so I'm just going to share momentarily here. Okay. Here it is. So it's taking longer than necessary, and I apologize for that. But the okay. I don't know why that it's showing up blank. Oh, there it is. It's just taking a while to load. So I've kind of begun to price things out here. Like I said, I don't have the circuit actually designed because I wired this by hand and I don't have the schematic. But what I did was, so for the back end assembly, this is a gross estimate. It'll be about $400. for each back-end system. So that's the box with the Raspberry Pi and the sound card and the interfacing circuits. And so it'll consist of one PCB that the Raspberry Pi and everything will fit onto. It'll be very modular. So I'm kind of expecting this to be about, with the grand total, about $450 each for the back end system. And the active antenna assembly, probably the most expensive part here is the copper tape. But I'm expecting this to come out to around $200 to $250. I apologize that I don't have more concrete numbers, but I'm just trying to get an accurate estimate, and I know that time is ticking, so I'm working to get this as accurate as possible. This way, there won't be any surprises when we go to build them. Nathaniel, what do you think about that? Where the backend system would cost $500, the active antenna probably would cost no more than $200, and the GPS antenna would cost $100 to $150.
That seems reasonable because I put down in my current spreadsheet, I have $1,000 for an entire VLF system.
Okay. Yeah, I think that we will definitely hit that target. That's a good target. That's a good estimate. And it gives us enough wiggle room. Once I actually work on the design, and I plan on getting this down to as cheap as I possibly can, but that's actually pretty good, and then that'll give us that'll also give us money for the feed line and the mast and the mounting hardware. I haven't figured out what I wanted to use for the mast, but I was thinking some sort of a well, would you want to stick with aluminum since this might be sited near magnetometers?
That sounds fine to me.
Okay. Well, the only thing
Aluminum
is,
versus PVC?
well, the mast I use as a connection for the earth ground.
Okay. Jonathan, how much tape is needed per unit? You don't need a whole roll, do you?
No, I wasn't sure exactly what I should do here because I figured that if I buy a large enough roll, I could do multiple antennas.
Right. Well, figure out how much tape you need per unit and divide the total cost by the number, and then put that into the budget.
Well, I wanted to kind of separate everything. Because
yeah, but you don't need to buy a whole roll of tape for each receiver.
No,
and I can also tell you, Jonathan, I'm probably not going to include all of this information in the budget in the proposal at this detailed level. So I'm probably gonna have like a line item. It'll probably just say, like you said, VLF backend, $400, GPS antenna, 250 or $100 or whatever it is. So I'll probably have it kind of at that block level, but I'm not gonna go down to like small component parts.
Correct. Yeah, yeah, I know. I was just trying to figure out the best way that I
Yeah.
that,
And you don't need a full schematic at this point. If you know what the parts are you're throwing in it, just add them up.
well, I wanted to get everything written down just to make sure that I have everything because I might miss one or two things, but I wanted to get an accurate an accurate spreadsheet so when we go to order all these parts, there's not a lot of surprises because I'm worried about running out of funding and I want to stay within budget. That's why that I'm trying to.
Yeah, no, I think that's smart. I think that's a good idea.
But yeah, so this is all a work in progress, and I believe that once it's done, we'll have something that's accurate, and then we'll have plenty of wiggle room if we need it. Because I guess in this case, it's good to have more than you need than less than you need, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, so that's whoops. Oh, was my, oh, there we go. Okay. So yeah, that's basically the plan. And I'm just kind of slow to update it, but I'm obviously doing multiple things. And but I will get it updated hopefully this week because I know that that you're going to need a number soon. So I'll try to get everything done this week.
That sounds really, really good. Yeah, no, thank you very much for that update, Jonathan. And I think I feel comfortable right now with the current budget value I have in the spreadsheet. So that just helps me to confirm that right now.
Yeah, I think that we're going to be on track and we're going to be within budget. And I'll do what I have to make sure that everything stays within that budget and there's enough wiggle room just in case. So, but yeah, I will keep working on it this week and I will share it with you when I get it done.
Thanks, Jonathan. That sounds really great. Why don't we go over to Gary? Gary's been, so to give everyone an update on the philosophy on how we think we're going to cite these things. At a meeting we had, I think last Wednesday or Thursday, we came up with the idea that for this particular grant, we're going to try to use the grant funding to create a network of really good, clean sites. So that means that, not we're looking for sites that are going to be kind of ideal for VLF, magnetometer, and HF reception all at the same time. So it means these sites are going to be kind of hard to find. We'll be looking for people who have, probably like large farms or rural locations that are in good low RF noise and magnetometer and VLF noise environments. But in doing so, we're going to try to create a network of kind of standard candle personal space weather stations. So that'll be for the receive sites. I think we're aiming to have somewhere between 15 to 30 of those. And then we are also looking at deploying hopefully about 10 whispersons as well. Some of them may be in the United States and some of them may be in more exotic locations, which I'm sure we will talk about at tomorrow's meeting with Rob's group. So I asked Gary if he would help us find some of these like really good sites from people who might volunteer to offer a site that would be good for these types of stations. So Gary, I was wondering if you had any updates for us on that.
Well, Jonathan did provide me some details on what he thought the ideal VLF site would be. And as you said, that would also be an ideal magnetometer site. I think one of the challenges we're going to run into, aside from finding the rural locations, which in this country at least there's a lot of them, is that I think people will need some idea of what to expect. I mean, are there 3 boxes going to show up in the doorstep and they basically install these things and roll out the cable and plug them in? Or are we doing more, expecting people to do more hands-on work type of thing? So that's something I want to be able to discuss with people, say at Dayton, to give them an idea what to expect.
Yes, I think that's really good. Unfortunately, we'll have to, the proposal is due on May 15th, right before Dayton. So we're going to have to have some, we'll have to get the proposal in before we can have those discussions at Dayton. But I think ideally we'd like to be able to, we'd like to have people who are a bit handy and a bit technical that can host these things that, would be able to do some things, but we'd try to minimize the amount of work they have to do as much as possible so that, we could have our core team support them and make it as easy of an experience for them as possible and have them only be as involved as they want to be. I think that'd be my hope.
There's always going to be challenges. I mean, you see there were challenges with the Grape 1, the DRF, the Grape 2, and now
Right.
you're going to actually multiply them by 3. So you're right. You need somebody that's got willingness and the ability to do the hands-on sort of stuff.
Right.
What do you need and when? I mean, obviously, I know you've got a deadline coming up. What kind of plan do you want from me? What would you want me to include in that roughly, and I'll come up with it.
Yeah. Well, ideally I think the best thing for the proposal would be to have a list of people who have good sites that are willing to host this and to have each of them actually provide some sort of letter offering some sort of commitment to the project, willingness to participate. And then we'd be able to actually put these people on a map. You know, in a perfect world, we'd have, 15 to 30 of these sites all picked out before the proposal comes in. I think that's, of course, a tall order. I think we could, we have a track record of being able to cite these things even after the proposals go through. So, if we don't have that full list or we can't get it, I think we can still write the proposal. But I think if we did have a list and letters from people offering, a commitment of their time and willingness to do this, and some sort of description of their facilities, I think that would make it a stronger proposal.
Got it. Understood. Yeah, you're right. That is a tall order. I mean, I spent about 3 months on the Grape 1 DRS, which I was learning what I was doing, so it took a lot longer.
Yeah.
The Grape 2 took about a month to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And
So
we're asking for something that's a lot more complex and a lot less time now too.
I totally understand that. And so I think I'm fully prepared in my mind to not have that. But I figured as long as you're asking for what I'd like, I think that's that's but
might as well ask for the moon and all the planets. That's okay.
Yeah, I could try, right? But
right.
I do totally understand that that's a very tall order.
Well, obviously I could start with our Hamside group. You got 1,200 people, so I can start doing some solicitation. I think a more practical result would be for the grant of saying, here's a methodology we can use to go out and find the people, and this is the information, and so on and so forth. So
I completely agree with that. So I think that's probably what we're going to do. but I figured I would say this anyway, just in case, who knows, there are 1,200 people on there. Maybe we do, maybe we're able to show 5 sites, as a
Right,
start,
right,
or
right,
like
right.
something like that. But yeah.
Well, you can
Okay, well,
certainly you can
and
certainly put KFS, I think, on the list, Gary. I think we've got I think we've got a great site there for your all 3 of the.
yeah.
I mean, we
okay.
already have the obviously the Whisper Demon stuff in the ARC 888s and grape reporting, but there's I've been exploring, and there's this site is surrounded by cows and fields, so I can. How long are the cables? I mean, these are Ethernet cables go from the antenna and the magnetometer back to the host. Is that what connects between the two?
Um, yeah, so for both the magnetometer and for the VLF system, we're using flooded, direct burial Cat 6E. They're
Good.
not
Okay.
used, as Cat 6, like as regular
Yeah.
network, but we're
Yeah.
using
Yeah.
those cables. And I
Yeah.
have a run in my backyard, which, Jonathan, that's like 300 feet, right?
Yeah.
275. I think we
Yeah.
finally measured.
Yeah.
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 And
Uh,
we have
The,
fond
the
memories of,
internet's the specification is 100 meters maximum for an Ethernet cable.
yeah.
right, but don't
But
forget we're not using it as an Ethernet cable, so that could change the specification.
yeah.
Right, but then you have to put a splice in because unless you can get bulk cable.
Right.
Well,
Which,
you get rolls of you get
yeah,
300-meter long rolls from when you buy it in bulk.
yeah,
So you can there may be longer rolls, but I typically buy these them at 333, 1,000 feet in
yeah.
a single run. So yeah, I would imagine you can run it. I've got I think I can run this out into a good 100 meters away from the building, if not farther, from the
Yeah.
nearest, and everything else. I mean, there's I don't know how any worries about barbed wire fences, things like that.
I don't think barbed wire fences would be a problem. I'm not sure how that would affect the magnetometer. I think it would be a minimal effect. I think that the biggest, a big problem would be electric fences, which have
Yeah,
pulse,
yeah, of course,
yeah,
but there's
which,
none of those at KFS.
no,
Paul,
but
I wonder,
certainly,
you're up in San Juan Island. You'd be another candidate. Seems like.
Yeah, we're going to be putting up the 888 and Whisper Demon, up at Steve, my co-conspirator up at his place, and that's out in the middle of the woods. We could host a magnetometer there too. One potential issue with his site, and this would apply for the HF as well, is that he is 100 times more of a geek than I am when it comes to computers and blinking lights and stuff like that. So, I'm hoping that his installation, won't be radiating too much crap. But there's room to, we can get, we can get 100 meters distance easily from anything he's got running. So, and what he's got running is in a metal structure. So I'm optimistic, but there is one potential caveat. But we could host, stuff besides just the 888 receiver there, and I'm sure he'd be happy to do it.
There's a number of Whisper Demon sites that might be candidates. So if people are, there's one in Oregon, Rick. So if you want a list, Gary, of potential sites, I mean, these are people who are committed to making, radio propagation, radio science measurements.
and
So I think they might be a good set of candidates.
I think that makes it even more compelling if we include in the list these sites that already have established the established Whisper Demon sites, and we say, oh, these stations have already been on the air for, 2, 3, 5 years or whatever, and are committed to have a demonstrated record of being committed to this, and now we're going to upgrade their sites by adding VLF and adding magnetometers. I think that sounds very compelling to me.
I would think so. Well, I'll float this on my Wednesday meeting with the Whisper Demon team, and see who's up for supporting this. I know, for example, I know of at least 2 or 3 sites in Europe that would go for this. Whisper Demon GPS Whisper Demon sites that are or could soon be doing grape reporting, but they don't get much at WWV over there. So it's
right.
I don't know. PA0MJX has been doing grape reporting from the Netherlands for through the eclipse. I don't know if anybody's looked. I haven't even looked at his charts. So I don't know what his grape reportings look like. But he's got a rural site in Netherlands that would, I'm sure, be, and he's super technical. And
okay, well, that would help a lot, Rob. Yeah, any open door is welcome.
Okay, Gary, I'll get you some.
In Nathaniel's original note to me, though, he said citing at least these VLF mag receiver systems in the U.S. and along the Canadian border. So, do we want to look into Europe for for the mags? And that's a long way to go at that point.
Well, that's the subject of tomorrow's conference call that I'm hosting.
Yeah.
And if
my thought for this particular call, for this particular proposal, since it's NSF focused, is that we do the majority of the receiver and magnetometer deployment within the continental United States. But I thought we might put some of these whisper. I mean, I guess it'll be interesting to see what we have from the network. I thought we would do some deployment outside the United States, with the majority of it in the US. I also think that building out this network, upgrading the network that we have on the call tomorrow, if we want to like upgrade the whole network, that seems like it'd be a really good ARDC proposal.
That was my thought as well. Is that we could daisy chain the 2 of them and have the NSF fund primarily the U.S. stuff, but then make a proposal to ARDC for the international sites that would be using the same equipment, contributing to the same database, but could get funding from ARDC.
Yeah. Oh, and also in the ARDC news, I'm happy to report that I've been trying to get some funding for a postdoc who presented at the HamSci workshop, and I asked the ARDC for some funding, and they awarded me $31,000 on Friday towards that.
Oh,
so
congratulations!
Now, the NSF, I'm asking for a supplement on one of my other grants, so I'm told I should be able to get that funding. So hopefully in a week or so, I'll be able to say I have a full funding for this additional postdoc we're trying to hire.
What's the kind of full funding for a postdoc?
You need about $120,000 to $130,000.
Yeah.
When you include all the overhead and a little bit for travel and a little bit for computers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So and that's for 1 year. But that'll get us started. But if this goes through, this particular person that we're hiring, I think she would be an excellent person to help do the analysis on this sort of project as well. So
we need somebody to look into the analysis and look at our software tools. And
she would be very good at that, I think. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Another. Well, I wonder if there's another a potential. I've just set up Larry Sarah.
Yes.
M6 CN. I've given him an account that is recording Super Darn from Japan.
Excellent.
And I'm wondering if that's with, so this is just another mode, like I added grape support to Whisper Daemon to support this project, your DAISY project. I'm wondering if there are potential funding sources for extending the analysis of SuperDarn.
Yes, I think there would be.
So there's be another potential. You're now able to look at SuperDarn, like up at Ellesmere Island.
Yeah.
I mean, we Ellesmere would hear. I would think all the SuperDarns are coming in up there, and and if we could get that site is running, but the antenna's broken.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things that I'm just thinking. Are there other organizations in addition to NSF, and even in addition to ARDN,
ARDC.
ARDC? I'm sorry. Well,
Yeah.
in addition to them, who might be sources for funding for?
Yeah. Yeah. So I do think that if we could figure out a way to do bistatic work with SuperDarn, I think that is something that could be done as well.
Yes, well, that would be the idea, is bistatic measurements. I would think that would complement what they're doing with their monostatic, right?
Yeah.
SuperDarn is basically a reflectometer, right?
Right.
It's right. And this would, there'd be single hop. I don't really know much about the SuperDarn network, so I don't even know what the modulation technique looks like. But
well, I think that's where I think it'd be trickier. I think some work has been done with bistatic SuperDarn, but they basically send out a multi-pulse sequence.
Yes.
That's I don't even know how many kilohertz wide, but
it's
sufficient.
25 kilohertz wide.
Okay, 25 kilohertz wide.
Yeah.
But multi-pulse sequence. So you have to be able. So identifying which radar is transmitting is perhaps tricky.
Do they identify themselves?
No.
There's no coding in there.
No, there's no. So yeah. So you'd have to. So if you. So you'd have to like figure out how to synchronize between the transmitters and the receivers.
Oh, we're GPS disciplined, and time of flight, or you
Yeah.
should close to it.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's Larry has proposed he's going to contact Dr. Okawa at the university in Japan, who has a graduate student that he was going to assign to this analysis of their recordings project. So I have already recruited a Japanese student. I don't know how much he knows. I don't know who this person is or if he's being assigned, but Larry said that he had this professor had said that he was going to assign someone. So I'm going to give this student an account at KFS and say, here's all the recordings. We're dumping, 6 gigabytes a day per channel. Of course, they don't transmit on all the channels, but I just record all of them. And I said, go for it and start analyzing it. So
that sounds really good. I think that's excellent.
So there's anyway, and hopefully, they'd be, if they're interested in SuperDarn analysis, maybe they'd be interested in looking into Whisper. So anyway, we need young, intelligent people whose minds aren't ossified like mine.
I agree with one part of that statement. I agree with the first part. I don't think your mind is ossified. So
maybe it's I'm out of control. It's okay. Well, anyway.
No, but I think that's really good, Rob. And I think that's a good thing to do.
Okay,
and
well, anyway, that's no involvement for you or anybody until something more happens on it.
Yeah, no, that's excellent.
Yeah, the biggest problem I have there is just the volume of data and the internet connection. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So that's good. So all right. So we made some progress here. We got some good updates from Jonathan. And then I think Jonathan, you said something to me that I think really kind of is helping me to, I think will help lead some of the discussion. I think what you said, Jonathan, was that it's really good to have these stations where we have the magnetometer, the VLF, and the HF all in the same place. And I don't think anyone else is really doing that. So I think that's going to be a selling point. And I think we should think of science cases that can make use of that.
Okay, yeah, because with you know, various phenomena that go on. So for example, you have a coronal mass ejection,
Right.
and so you'll have a change in the a change in the magnetic field. You could also have dawn chorus, and you could also have whistles a couple days later after the storm starts to settle. There with solar flares, you can see so well, depending on which part of the ionosphere the solar flare interacts with, or affects rather, you can see a direct effect in VLF transmitters, and you could also see it in Doppler flash as well, although they don't necessarily coincide. I've you know, because there's different mechanisms going on and different physics. They don't necessarily coincide, but it could.
But they still have the same upstream source of the solar flare.
Yeah, because I remember Christina's presentation for not this year's HamSci but last year's HamSci. There was a slide specifically that she showed, and there were two situations where a solar flare would affect the ionosphere. One situation would cause the Doppler flash, and the other situation would cause the would cause an extra ionization in the D layer. And she had a slide, and I didn't take a picture of it, and I meant to contact her about it, but that slide is what I was gonna kind of connect that.
Right.
But yeah, I believe with all three instruments we could see effects on all three instruments.
Right. Which I think putting that sort of thing into the proposal could be very strong. Now, I know you've been looking through cases, finding plots for the VLF receiver here. Have you I haven't had a chance to like read through your email thread on that, but do you have any that match up with HF data? And that could probably be something that I could look at since I have access to the HF data. I could just look at the ones that you have.
Well, so well, the one thing that we could definitely say is about solar flares.
Right.
Now, when there's CME impacts, when there's CME impacts, I'm not sure how we could. Well, what does that look like in HF when there's an impact with the CME?
I think it depends on which part of HF you're looking at. And so I think, I don't have a good, clear understanding of what the signature really looks like on the grapes. I know like on regular HF, it should correspond with um uh possibly, worse propagation at higher frequencies, maybe propagation still okay at lower frequencies. But I know that when I tried to do the what do you call it? When I tried to look for storm signatures in the RBN and PSK reporter data, it was complicated. So
Right.
I mean,
Right.
but that could be, whereas usually the what do you call it? Usually um the what do you call it data? I'm sorry, I'm starting to get tired. I may have to go soon. I'm also a little distracted. Um, but usually the solar flare data observations are very kind of clean and relatively easy to interpret,
Right.
whereas the
Yes.
geomagnetic storm observations are more difficult.
Right. Yeah. And that's, see, and that's also the case with VLF. So obviously, one of the things that you could get is, either John Chorus or periodic emissions risers, um, which the most recent CME that we got, I think it was over the weekend, um, caused some risers in the UK. And really strong CMEs tend to affect the E layer, because I can see it in the Navy VLF transmitters,
Right.
that there's more amplitude variation, small temporal scale amplitude variation. So it's um, I'm not sure the physics behind that, but I can see what happens to these signals. But like, it's going to be really hard to, like, for every um, event, it's going to be hard to uh, that every time we are going to get these uh, observations. So it's that it's a difficult and tricky thing, like you said,
Right.
because like here there were no risers, but there were risers in the UK. So obviously the CME had a greater impact in the magnetosphere over in the UK.
Right.
So uh, we're going to have to kind of, like, maybe cherry pick some things to
Uh-huh.
to kind of drive the point home.
Right.
But it's not something that we can say that, dawn chorus is always going to happen every single time that you have a CME, or and you might have propagation effects, every single time in the HF. So it's going to be tricky, but I think if we cherry pick and try to tell our story, that might be the best way to do it.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable. And I mean, and with our plan, we'd be distributing these across a fairly large area, so you wouldn't necessarily expect every single one to pick up every single thing. But
Right.
yeah.
And I mean, that would be the benefit. And like, you could also say, because sometimes these these phenomena don't always affect every region the same, you could see which regions are affected if we were to have a network of these things distributed.
Yeah. That seems very, I think that's a good way to go.
Okay, I mean, let me know what else you need and what else I could help you with, and um, we could hopefully get this ready to go.
That sounds great. I think what'll probably happen is I'll probably look for, have more discussion with you regarding the science goals, and probably I'll look for some more plots from you and descriptions of the instrument. And we'll work on that over the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds really good. I will also tell you that I just I got your email about the GPS system, so I just connected the your VLF receiver directly to the outside GPS antenna. I reconnected my Grape 2 back to the GPS splitter. I connected the puck antenna to the GPS splitter input. So now you can see how that affects the system.
Okay, all right, perfect.
And then I also transferred the auto SSH services for both the VLF server computer was already doing its own auto SSH. I added the VLF receiver to that system. So hopefully, so now it's not relying on the Raspberry Pi, it's relying on your VLF on the VLF server computer.
All right, good.
And I did a system update on that. So I think we're square.
Yeah. That should be good for a while. I just checked everything, and everything on the VLF server looks good. All the programs are running. It's capturing data. I'm hopefully going to get regular backups going of the SID data, that it'll back up on the hard drive. I have the scripts ready to go. I just have to implement them in Cron. But yeah, everything actually looks good. Did you just connect the or did you just change the connection now?
Yeah, just about a minute ago.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
I
So-
wrote it in the log
All right,
sheet as
good.
well.
Good. Okay, then, because what I was thinking for a long-term solution is if this is what I think it is,
Okay.
and that this splitter is basically a passive splitter with a power injector, which I didn't think it was, but it seems like it is. If this seems to be the case, I was thinking what we can do is we could just get a distribution amplifier.
Okay.
There are ones that are filtered and not filtered. The ones that are filtered are more expensive, but the antenna should have filtering on it.
Okay.
So we shouldn't have to spend the extra money. And again, my apologies because when I looked at this, and I remember you looked at it too, it looked like it was an active splitter, and
Yeah.
so my apologies for all this trouble. I've also been trying to get in contact with this company, and they just I'm having a really hard time. They're in the UK. Every
Yeah.
time I call them, nothing. The emails don't get delivered. Their website doesn't seem to be, like you could order anything anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, I had tried putting another quote in for another one of these a month or two ago, and I don't think I ever got a response back from that. So yeah,
Yeah,
because I think whatever, and we do have a little bit of money to get this right. So if the thing we need is a little more expensive, it's probably okay. Um, and whatever we do here, I want to duplicate at the university in that back lab space because we
right.
have a GPS antenna coming in there, and I need a distribution amplifier for different, you know, systems in there as well. So
Right. Yeah, that because I mean,
Isn't Tapper, John Ackerman has a GPS distribution amp. Have you considered it?
I haven't, but I'd be willing to.
You should. It's a and Glenn Elmore has a superb, super duper distribution GPS distribution amplifier, but it's L1 band only. So if you want to do that doubled my signal strengths out at KFS when I put it in Glenn's. It's incredible. Because it includes ground isolation and narrowband filtering on the distribution amp. So it improves the signal noise ratio. And of course it's active. So it's so I mean of all the distribution amps I know of, and I've used these $1,000 commercial ones, Glenn's is the best design out there.
Huh.
And you can order them. The problem is that Glenn doesn't want to be a manufacturer and distributor. So if George wants to take it on and order them from JLPCB, you could have Glenn's, and it's dirt cheap. It's like $30 from JLPCB. I mean, it's just nothing.
That would be nice.
If you need a GPS, Glenn was going to send me another one, so I may have a spare, but it's
Yeah. How
I
many
could send
ports does it have on it?
8.
Yeah, that'd be beautiful. Yeah. I'll take one.
Okay, I didn't know if you were talking about GPS or what. Oh yeah, well
Yeah.
this is the Glenn's. There are a bunch of Glenn's designs that I think your group would really benefit from, and this is one. But Glenn is loath to get involved in manufacturing and distribution and customer support. So if George seems open to do these things.
Yeah, I
So,
mean that's kind of what Tapper does. So Tapper would be
well, if you would express an interest in this, then if you support me, I'll send a note to George and talk, and with a link to. I mean, Glenn has the design and the link to the how to order them from JLPCB. There, it's up on Glenn's website. So
yeah.
It's just that it's like ordering from Heathcote. If you order it from JLPCB. So you got to put it in the case and and screw it in basically as they put and pieces on it and such. So it requires a minimal amount of assembly, but but John's design was to support both all the L1, L3, all these the multi-band, so it has no filtering on it. And so it isn't if you just want L1 band, the primary band, then Glenn's design is the best. Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah, you should watch out because it does not have filtering, and you might need the filtering if you've got other carriers around.
Yes, and that's why Glenn's design is a better choice. Well, let me look at
a good GPS antenna is going to have good filtering on it.
It's the isolation between the receive devices is also useful. So one of the problems with Kiwis is that they interfere with each other. The GPS signals interfere with the RF input signals, and so it can be a mess if you have a strong shortwave AF environment. You can degrade your GPS performance.
Yeah, I was going to say that if you have other carriers around, it can get in unless you're really careful with the wiring.
Yeah, this is anyway. That's I've ended up with yeah, this is good, but it's I think it's designed for a different with different goals in mind. So Glenn's design is quite a bit different, and it has the you know, microstrip filtering on it and so on. So it's I don't know that how he does it, but that's his Glenn's professional background. So he knew how to put all the filtering on it. I had one other question, a couple of other questions for Jonathan. And I saw your price list. You included both a USB drive and a micro SD. I was wondering why you did that. You can get a you know, half a gigabyte micro SD high performance for $40. So were you going to need more storage than that in your host? The you know, unless you need removable, you know, storage media, of course, then you need two of them. But anyway, that's the other one. More importantly, is you know, that the 888 is spec to go down to 1 kilohertz. Has anybody ever tried listening to a VLF on a 888? And what kinds of recordings are you making? I mean, do you have a splitter off your VLF antenna, Nathaniel? Could you feed it to a 888?
You'd have to ask Jonathan that question.
So for the second question, the way that I have this is this is that with VLF it's all treated as it's all treated as an audio signal.
Yeah.
So the VLF antenna itself is an antenna element directly connected to a preamp. The preamp won't necessarily support an RF or a 50 ohm input.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to try VLF on the 888. But the problem is that to maintain compatibility with VLF-RX tools, which I use to do all my processing,
what are you recording? What are the recordings that comes out of your system right now?
So I record the VLF spectrum from the sound card's bottom level at around 0 hertz to 48 kilohertz.
Mm-hmm. And what's the what are the frequencies of interest to you? What I mean is it? I mean, if it's important to have response below 1 kilohertz, then clearly the 888 is not a solution. So but if you know, if 1 kilohertz to 48 kilohertz PCM, and you know, 16-bit PCM to 48 kilohertz, that'd be really easy to generate off of a 888.
It would actually. It would be useful. What I see that the 888 would be useful with is VLF transmitters, because that would be something that perhaps Phil could implement in a software, possibly with the help of VLF-RX tools. But the problem is that VLF-RX tools works with sound cards.
Yeah, but yeah, what is the file format that it accepts as input? That's not. You get wave files. I mean, what are you giving it? Wave files?
Yeah, I could generate wave files, or there's a time-stamped raw PCM format.
I'm sorry, timestamp what?
Time-stamped raw PCM format.
Okay. Well, that's but in any case, these are 16-bit samples at 48 kilosamples put into a file. Is that what comes out? And then you have a program that analyzes those files, or is that? I'm just trying to understand what
What is the low end on an 888?
It's a kilohertz. So you're not going to get below kilohertz. Well, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, the spec says 1 kilohertz.
Yeah, that's interesting because I thought it had input transformers and they'd feep out down there.
Well, that would be the question. Of course, for this purpose, you could take you take out the transformers.
Yeah.
It's a A to D and
right.
An op amp in front of it, and you could
Yeah, for the VLF transmitters, which are pretty strong signals, this would probably be okay. But for other things, you want higher dynamic range and
higher dynamic
bits.
than 16 bits.
Yeah, 24 bits is usually what we do.
Well, of course the oversampling is gets us an effective.
Not
at least,
really. I mean, the 888 isn't. It's a lot noisier than audio ADCs.
That I can believe. It's not an audio DAC.
No, it's not an audio ADC.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I just thought it was interesting.
It might be able to be.
Yeah, I didn't know. I was noticing it covered some of this band, and I didn't know whether it might be useful.
Yeah, I think in the future it'd be something that we could investigate, especially with VLF transmitters. I think it would be an ideal situation that if people just want to capture VLF transmitters, which is good enough. But the reason why that I use the VLF preamps and the sound cards is because I'm interested in spherics, whistlers, stuff that can go below kilohertz. But yeah, and to your second question, that was related to the
storage on the
signal processing. Okay, so one of the things that I monitor is I monitor VLF transmitters. So I send it into a program which is configured with the frequencies of each of the VLF transmitters. It does MSK demodulation and it does some measurements. So it'll measure amplitude of a specific frequency in a bandwidth, and it'll measure absolute phase, which is the receive phase compared to a reference phase generated from the GPS pulse per second. It also, but it could also just monitor, regular signals, just their amplitude. So I'm monitoring VLF transmitters. I'm monitoring various VLF signals, some of the hum frequencies, some of the energy in the spherics band, things like that. So various signals. I monitor from 5 to 7 kilohertz. That gives a good measure on the number of or the average power of spherics over the course of the day. And then I'm also monitoring for natural radio signals. So that's kind of from 16 kilohertz to down to around 300 hertz. That's going to be your whistles, your down chorus, but I'm monitoring a specific section of bandwidth, and that's run through a event detector where it looks for the frequency or the properties of the frequency components, like rising rising frequencies, which would be risers and down chorus, and the hue transform or the Eckersley curve, which it's looking for the Whistler curve. And then I'm also I would do filtering for amateur transmissions, and I would monitor spheric time of group arrivals. That's another section of signal processing. So yeah, natural radio signals, VLF transmitters, and spherics are the main things that I capture.
Yeah, but it sounds like your input is you're taking, your programs are accepting the audio stream, this audio samples in real time and processing them. And they can write them, right? They can write them to WAV files and such. But the actual input is a live stream of what 24-bit or more samples, right? That's okay. Well, it doesn't sound like that the AAA it would add much, if anything, to what you're already doing. I just wondered if there was something, you know, useful that it could do that. But it doesn't seem, from what you've said and what David said, it doesn't seem like it would add much to your part of the spectrum. But
yeah, and the other thing that would add to the complication would be timing and signal references. So Phil Soffer would have to add timestamps, which I don't think it does right now.
It doesn't. It could, but the issue that he has, we don't have the 1 PPS pulses, so and we don't really need at the moment. We don't need absolute time.
Right.
We just need time to be stable. So the way that our recordings are done for Whisper Demon is that when it starts up, the Whisper Demon software records and waits for the first transition on the wall clock from second 59 to second 0, at which point it starts recording. And after that, it just records the same number of 960,000 samples, and then it opens the next file. And as long as all 888s are GPS disciplined, as long as that's the case, then you don't lose any samples, of course, then that system works great. So it's but that's not a big issue. Although I think you've already learned, maybe you've heard that we have encountered problems with sound cards, sample rates and accuracy and drift that have affected whisper measurements when a PC sound card is used as the input to WSJTX. You get sound card drift and errors. So I've removed support for sound cards from Whisper Demon just in part because of that. I said they weren't useful for radio science. But I mean, but at shortwave frequencies, you have different issues.
Right. Yeah. And one of the other major applications of timing, of course, is measuring the phase of these VLF transmitters. If I'm interested in lightning location, which I definitely am.
Yeah.
That's obviously something that you would need precision timing for, and that's where the PPS comes in. But I think eventually we could add a lot of these features to KN9Q radio, but for now,
I don't think it doesn't seem like it would bring much to your measurements.
No. Actually, actually, so the author of VLFRX tools, he actually investigated quite a bit of this, and he found that sound cards are probably the best VLF data acquisition
Yeah.
you could get, at least for VLF. So
But you're not GPS driving your clock on your sound cards, are you?
well, so with VLFRX tools and the GPS pulse per second,
Yeah.
what it does is it'll calibrate out. There are two stages of calibration, at the capture, and then there's another stage where it'll actually measure, take a measurement of that drift, and then calibrate it out using the PPS as a reference.
Yeah.
So then in effect, you
can GPS reference based upon the PPS.
The caveat to that, Jonathan, is you have to have a high sample rate sound card.
Yeah.
Got a net sample at least at 96 kilohertz.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean,
not just your common variety, garden variety.
Yeah.
Right. Well, to kind of get around that, what Paul has done is, so there are certain situations where you could only sample at 48K, but you could adjust your you could change your method of sampling the pulse. And one of the more accurate methods that he...
No, but I'm talking about the signal. You can't get NAA through a 48 kilohertz sample rate.
Oh, right, yes. Oh, yes. Yep. Yep.
But by the way, I didn't, perhaps you knew this, but I didn't until just very recently, that the dual channel Bogner, which I had dismissed as being a waste because I could never get two frequencies, the two frequencies I wanted out of it at the same time. But if you turn off the second output, if you enable only one output, I learned that there is a secret appendix someplace, and they do put the PPS signal out the disabled BNC on a dual channel Bogner.
Right.
I have heard that.
I hadn't heard it before.
Yeah, he's got some secrets in there. I've had to communicate with him directly.
Well, it was news to me, and not that I can use the
There are
PPS.
also some tricks in getting specific frequencies out the two ports.
They only implement a subset of the ratios that are possible.
Right.
Well, Franco and the continuing fractions group are the ones that are pursued all of those. And so I know that that is possible to do much better. Glenn also has, Elmer also has a new GPS DO design that uses a 5351 with 7 outputs on it. One GPS will generate 7 frequencies. And Glenn's algorithm, is continuing fraction algorithm, is he at this point thinks he's doing significantly better than the Bogner. In part because he's using a better crystal oscillator, a VXCO.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Leo designed it with a TCX.
Yeah.
XO, because to keep the cost down.
Well,
he was threatening to build one with an OCXO, but I don't think he ever did.
No, I don't think so. But anyway, Glenn has a 7 output design, which he's again, I think is available from JLPCB. That'd be another Tapper product because I had to go through hoops to generate the 4 outputs. They're all the same frequency. They're all 27 megahertz, but I needed to put a distribution amp in at KFS in order to get 4 clock lines. and I needed 5 because I have a GPS disciplined Kiwi that's running at 66.672 megahertz. So Glenn says he can generate a low spectral spread, or low phase noise at that frequency and at 27 at the same time. So I'm
Well, it's 11 o'clock. I'm turning into a
okay.
pumpkin.
No,
Yeah, I
I'm
should
keeping you
probably
guys. Yeah, keeping you up.
go too.
And I'll see you tomorrow afternoon, I hope. I haven't
Yes,
kept you up
I'm
too late
planning on
later.
as long as I have electricity in my house, I'm planning on being there.
Okay.
So,
Well, okay. Well, that website does work on your cell phone, so you can bring it up on
I will be there.
please be there at least for a few minutes.
Oh no, definitely. I think this is a
Okay.
really, really,
Okay.
really good thing.
Anyway,
Thank you
okay.
so much for putting that
Okay.
together.
Oh, hey, you're
73.
welcome. Okay. Hey, 73 is everybody. Nice to talk to you.
73, Rob.
Okay.
Bye,
Take care.
everybody.
Bye.
Good night.